Today's topic is...
discussing the lore and design behind Gloam Hyyn.
Who's this guy?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to WAYPN.
WAYPN.
I'm Cal.
And I'm Sunny.
And we have with us...
Mish Mash.
Mish Mash. It's Mish Mash.
So, we're talking about your own faction. You got to make a faction with the creator of Quar, right?
Yep, Mr. Quartieri himself.
Mr. Quartieri.
Is that his name? Really?
No, it's Quartieri.
Oh!
So it's not necessarily a niche thing if you look into Quar, because I find him to be just about as interesting as the war game itself in a lot of ways. Not to, kiss up too much. I mean, I work with a guy, so there's that, but there's a reason why I enjoy working on it so much, but the original name for Quar was actually Hookers.
What?
And,
Oh my...
Well,
this is
family
this
friendly.
Has been his passion. Well,
oh my god.
Well, that was the name. It was
I'm kidding.
because he created it when he was 9. He was 9 years old when he created it. And then after telling his mother what he called them, he was promptly told he probably shouldn't call them that. And it's always funny to me.
It is quite impressive to think that he started this game when he was 9. It's incredible. And then now it's a reality.
Oh, yeah. Well, they started as little doodles. I mean, Quar just stems from rhyming war with the first letter of his last name. So it's funnier to me because he tells me that he pushes out the Quar puns or filters them, and he has nobody to blame but himself. But I'm still a cheese grater on the soul purposely. So
as I understand it, there are 2 main factions within Quar. There's what's essentially the Royalist faction and the Rebel faction. And is it the Coft tier that are the Royalist faction?
So there's technically, yes, they are probably the biggest of the Royalists because there's so far within the landscape that we have, there's the nation of Koftir and the nation of Fidwag, and they're on separate parts of the main continent because Alwyd, the planet, only has one true continent. They're all basically connected. There's some islands, but that's not what we classify.
But no islands like Australia, no massive islands.
Not massive enough to be, yeah, exactly. But Koftir, I would say, is the royalist, like the main royalists. Fidwag is definitely a little bit different, and they're actually there will be on pre-order this week, the Fidwag faction, so I figure I mentioned that. But Koftir is where Gloam Hyyn resides in.
Okay.
Or vice versa, rather. Gloam Hyyn is a principality within Koftir, and we've actually had other principalities that have had lore within Koftir as well, most notably the Gwents. They are if you remember the Redcoat Bicorn Quar. Koftir has spawned several sub-factions.
Well, we've actually been looking at the pictures, and we already figured that they were royalists. Shall we go into the design analysis? Because we've got an analysis of your faction.
Yeah.
All right, let's go for it. So, Sunny, you are the graphic designer. Would you like to talk about this particular guy?
So for this Quar uniform, it seems simple in design. There isn't any fancy embroidery or accessories attached to it. When we look at the bandaged leg and shoulder parts of the uniform, it gives a sense of realism because it shows off the injuries of the soldier, along with the number 17 stuck onto him on a piece of a wood plank, I think. We're seeing very humble design elements paired against a purple, which is quite ironic considering color psychology-wise, purple is the color of royalty, prestige, and sophistication, and judging from the fact that they're from Koftir, it makes sense that they're using purple, but
they're a royalist faction.
But it is a bit confusing in terms of the design elements.
Yeah, it's a great juxtaposition though.
More fancy, but judging by their overall style, it doesn't show those traits of purple at all, especially looking at the head of the Quar. He looks to be wearing camo gear on his helmet with grasses and dirt all over it. So I am curious to know why purple and what does it mean to this faction, because judging by their look, you'd think brown or drabs would be more fitting.
Yeah, just based off that, without giving us any lore information, how close is Sunny's analysis?
Pretty spot on in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, that's the main thing that I wanted to create for them design-wise was the swerves. So yeah, that is very spot on.
So let's take a look at a couple more templates. Okay.
All right. So let's take a look at this next one.
So this fella, he does not look impressed, everyone. He does not like you, okay? So once again...
You specifically.
Oh, me! How can... Why? No, not me. Everyone loves Sunny.
Well, according to the comments, no one loves Cal. But let's go on and talk about the actual picture in front of us.
Yeah, once again, we're seeing the purple clothing here, but the outfit doesn't seem to look like military uniform. He's got some drab colored overalls on and a gray neck scarf. He looks more like a hardworking farmer here. So it seems even farmers wear the purple color. So does this mean that where this Quar is from, the people there who have humble jobs see it as important, and that's why they wear purple? I wonder. So.
Oh, and there's one more thing I want to get with you. Are you talking about drab the color?
Drab the color, yes, sorry.
Okay, because there's like the colloquial term drab, which means like not that important.
Or like the clothes, or
Not
as we say
good-looking.
in Singapore, lapsap.
Yeah. So can you just tell them what drab is? It's a type of green,
It's
right?
like a desaturated green and somewhat of a olive green or army green, if you yeah.
How close is she lore-wise?
So this is the funny part. This is quite the opposite
Oh,
of what.
okay, all right.
This guy is not a farmer in any way.
Okay, all right, okay. We'll
Russell.
keep that in mind.
We'll take a look at the next guy,
one.
and we'll see how close Sunny is, and then I think it's on to design versus law, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so these two are very interesting. We are back to the Quar military uniform, but he's got an angular fish type creature that he's wearing as both his helmet and armor for his back. He's got his rifle for his weapon, but I see fishnets coming down the sides of his helmet too, and he's got slippers for his footwear. In the second artwork, and there's an odd creature drawn next to him, so I wonder what that's about. Overall, I think if this Quar is wearing fish as part of their armor, maybe this is how their Marine Corps are dressed. That's my thought on it.
So you can just tell us how close Sunny is, and then we can move on to the design versus law part, and then you can tell us the law around them and what we got right and what we got wrong.
Yeah.
I think the wording isn't necessarily correct, but it's not. There's not so much like. I think this is more analysis more than opinion.
Yeah.
For this analysis rather, but kind of not exactly. Kind of in between. It's kind of hard to give a good answer for that one, but you know what I mean.
Okay, so we're close. All right, so shall we move on?
Sort of, yeah.
Yep, shall we move on to
Design versus law?
All right, Mish Mash, hit us with the facts. How close were we? What have we missed? What have we gotten right? What have we gotten wrong?
And what's the story?
This is the regular uniform for the Gloam Hyyn Rifler. This is pretty apropos for their main kit. The rank plank, as I call it, is not the technical term. I just like calling it that. That is the medallion of Gloam Hyyn. Their Kaftiran cousins wear metallic medallions. The Gloamers wear, they don't feel the need to purchase, spend a pretty penny on something that's superfluous in combat, especially being water dwelling
Okay,
people.
yeah,
You don't want to
yeah,
have you don't have a metallic plate on your chest.
Yeah, it's gonna
while in the
rust
water.
up and all that. Yeah, wood makes more sense.
And what is the importance of this? So I see a number printed on it. So is it just
So it's squad number, and the plank itself is carved from the trees of Gloam, bringing with them a piece of home wherever they go.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, yeah.
And so a lot of people have called it hair. It's supposed to be straw on the helmet.
Yeah,
yeah.
at first I thought it was hair as well, but I think...
Quar are all bald. Besides, well, they can grow facial hair.
Oh,
but
they
not,
can grow facial hair.
not like full beards, but they can get little buzzed
A little
fuzz.
stubble.
So
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta put a rad stash on him.
So you were saying at first you thought it was hair, but
But then I think with the way that it's attached to the helmet, I thought and the way that it's a bit straggly at the ends, I thought maybe it looked a little bit more like grass or some sort of camo wear that I've seen, especially when you've got grasses on the helmet. So I'm thinking if they're doing grass on the helmet, that's probably like some sort of camo thing that they've got on the side as well. So that's what I thought.
Yep. All right. So would you like to tell us more about this sort of camo design that they have?
So that's more so to give more of the basic camo to kind of blend in, while they primarily do not show their attire whenever they're plotting any sort of attack. Hence why the purple has become kind of a non-thing, where a lot of people have wondered why they have purple for while in conjunction with camouflage. The Gloams of Alwyd are kind of special places. They're very bioluminescent in design.
Oh, okay.
So purple does kind of work for them, but the green is also what they would have, that's the only part of them that they would show out of the water for the most part. There were some designs that were scrapped because they were a little too goofy, but they were fun to create. There was some that had algae camo and lily berets.
Lily berets. I like that idea. I think that's fun.
Do you still have the original sketches with those? Because I'd love
absolutely.
to see.
Yeah, no, that'd be...
Yeah, I can absolutely post it.
So when you chose purple, sorry to interrupt, is that...
Oh, yeah, no worries.
So the purple is what gives the bioluminescent pigment in their wear? Is that it? Or how does that work?
Giant snails.
Giant snails!
Well, that's
which will have miniatures eventually.
Yeah. Well,
nice.
That's actually pretty close to how we actually get
purple. But it's a specific purple. I think it's
a sea
Tunisian
slug.
Purple or something like that. Yeah, that's the most expensive purple even today because of the traditional method that they make. So obviously he did some history research there to try and tie in with the purple. And that makes sense because a great way to show someone who is more humble, even if they're using purple, is to desaturate it. And you can see that the purple that's being used in the artworks are not like super vibrant purples.
Yeah.
They're more desaturated purples. So you can give that impression that way as well.
Yeah, for sure.
The reason, so there is a little bit of dichotomy there, because a lot of the artwork, even before this piece, because this is actually kind of a final rendition, the original was very drab. Like, it was barely even recognizable as purple, because I really like pastel colors. I like working with a medium that has less color because I like the interpretation, but you also have to take into account what will look good on tabletop.
Yeah.
Because if you have an army that's desaturated, it doesn't pop out at you. And especially the game like Quar, where, every day we're getting new lore and color schemes and factions, you need to stand out.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do. And that was a suggestion for the guy that actually, or from the guy that does most of the main box art. So I have to thank him for that.
And I think that's an excellent point that you've brought up, because we talk about that when we do the Space Marine analysis as well.
In fact, this week we've been working on the
Word bearers.
And we talked about how it's really important to make that differentiation, because we've got so many different red factions.
Red and gold and silver. Yeah.
Having that desaturated red, that almost wine red, makes it so that they're different from the other ones. But I think there might be a few too many red factions.
Yeah, but I think it's great it's great.
We ran into the same problem with Quar.
Yeah,
there was actually another. There were already Fidwog used to have red, but now they're more of a magenta red. Obviously, the Gwynts are a bright British red.
Yeah,
and the Tolmarese, I will say, I kind of disagree with them on this one. The Tolmarese had kind of a leather brown red, but it never really scanned as red to me. It matters. You have to stand out, and especially with a newer game, you have to have factions that not newer, but one that is newer to the more limelight scene in some ways.
One of the things we talked about, Sonny and I, was how football teams, right, they've been around forever, and one of the big things that they have is, let's say there's two red teams in a league, they will wear different coloured uniforms than normal if they're versing each other. So, like, let's say one's got red as a primary colour and black as a secondary colour. They'll wear a black-red uniform instead of the usual one. But when it comes to war games, somebody's spending, let's be honest, a week's worth of time doing one of these, armies. If you're a decent painter, like, I'm talking a full week's worth of painting. Of course, I'll do it over months or whatever. So you can't really have an alternative uniform for versing somebody else. If there's a purple...
you have to have something you have to commit to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing that we'd like all of our audiences to take note of, is that sometimes you have to balance between meaning meaning in design and practicality in design. So some of the time, psychologically speaking, I don't even think that's a real word. Is it psychologically speaking? It's correct.
I get, yeah.
I put the stress
I got what you
wrong.
meant. Yeah.
It may not 100% match every single trait in the color profile, but some of the times you just do it because it contrasts better with a different color. So we have to think along those lines too. It's not all set in stone.
And the most important rule of cool.
Cool.
Yeah, and like that's one of the big things.
Yeah, we'll finally move on to this guy. We got I kept sidetracking myself. So this is technically an unfinished character, so that is partially my fault to a degree. There is now a miniature of this guy, but this is a Kaftiran officer. Gloamers don't have a full army structure. They don't have full autonomy because they're a principality within a greater nation.
Okay,
and their NCOs are typically appointed from Kaftir, and as a result, the Kaftir officers will still wear the purple, but they wear water waders as they view the Gloamers as bumpkins. They're still royalists, but they're like, I don't want to get my uniform stained. Like, this is gross.
Yeah, well.
So they, Well, and that's why he has the medallion. That's the typical Kaftiran medallion between the...
Well, that's really interesting because we did some redesigns before, we found out the full lore of them. Because it seems like we were hitting onto something, but we'll move on to the final thing. So your anglerfish dog, what's
anglerfish dog?
Well, look at it. It's like an
I don't know what that is.
Anglerfish dog worm.
No, it can't be an anglerfish. It doesn't have the little antenna like the other guys. See?
I think they're the same thing, are they?
No.
Okay.
Not even a little bit. So the thing on his back is a fish. I still haven't given it a proper name, but...
Okay, cool.
So these are the Sarfkin handlers, and they also have different designs for trappers. So these guys handle the little worm dude. Those are called Sarfkin. They're basically water drakes / snakes / Florida puppies. And the best part about these are actually a previous design used for Josh's other game, War of Ashes.
Okay.
Because Quar isn't his only game. People usually don't know about this. We decided, and this was actually something that was suggested by our buddy Marshall, who's, I mean, he officially has a character in the lore now, so we can bring up that image. I'll send it.
Okay, let's
we'll take
a look later.
Basically what these guys are, these guys are the trench raiders because most factions have melee specialists. Most factions they're definitely different in the tabletop game, but they have kind of the basic lineups of what you would need for an armed force. These guys, the Sarfkin, the little drakes, these guys are set loose, they go crazy, they bite you, they're venomous, and this guy on the right with the fish thing, he is just there to make sure that they don't go too crazy.
I see.
Do the fish sort of scare them into being behaved, or what?
How do they?
It's more of a ritual thing, and they usually just hit them with shovels.
So why the anglerfish?
A very strong ritual, just hit with shovel.
So that was the first design. So they kind of released. I'm trying to find a good way to describe this. These guys, the guy with the fish. There's two different models. One is the trapper design, and those guys are supposed to be even stealthier. They will glide along the water while wearing the fish, and will set traps, bear traps. They'll set up, little pits.
Yes.
And the main design, the main reason I went with that is I just thought it was cool. So the original one that I drew on the left, initially they did just have the netting.
Yeah.
But we decided after that design to go with the straw. So technically that is an outdated design, but I'm so proud of that drawing that I'm just like, it's canon.
I like it.
I also like it, and we actually used it as inspiration for one of our redesigns. Speaking of, unless there's any extra lore you want to tell us before we move on, Should we move on to redesign, or is there anything extra you want to tell us?
That's about it. That is basically the long and short of it.
Let's move on to redesign. We've got our first redesign that we did, and we'll get you to comment on it, but Sunny will basically explain it first off.
Yeah, so once I saw that there was a lot of these aquatic elements that was being used, I thought that maybe they would have some ghillie suits on.
Oh, no, this one.
Sorry,
right
this
here.
is not a ghillie suit. I don't know why I called it. It's a water waiter.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
our next redesign.
Yeah,
but we'll,
so
we'll
I thought-
focus on this one.
I thought that a water waiter would make more sense because, like, even with military, whether or not they're humble or, you know, they're more in the trenches or more in the background, I think there is a certain level of respect that people would give to their uniforms. So I think a water waiter makes a lot of sense. But also, if you're going to be around water a lot, you don't want to be stuck in the water shivering for long periods of times, and then, you know, you miss your aim or something like that. So I guess that water waiters made a practical sense as part of their uniform. So this is what I came up with. And I think after hearing the story, if I could swap out the head with the anglerfish guy, I think it makes more sense, because now I know that the original was actually just a basic rifler. I think this would make sense because he's going to be spending more time in the water as compared to the rifler.
You said that the officer is in water waders, but not the general guy. So this guy wouldn't fit with that redesign. Can you explain why?
Because the Gloamers view the Cofterns as weak and nerds for wearing water waders. To be in touch with the Gloam is to that's some city boy talk. Let's put it like that. Well, I'm also a royalist myself, but you know what? We live in the Gloams. This ain't the nice city states. This is we live on the water here. You're part of the water.
Okay, so
It doesn't necessarily make sense, but it's really cool.
Looking at the one where they're wearing thongs, basically the reason they're doing that is it almost a spiritual thing from what you're saying? Like they got to be in touch with the Gloam?
Usually they're barefoot. I think that Josh decided to make them all wear the little Crocs because it's easier for him to
Model?
yeah, that and printing purposes.
Okay.
Initially we were gonna have them only attached as like they're kind of hippies, so they're like the idea was that they'd only wear them around other Cofterans, or as okay, we'll put our foot prisons on.
We'll put our feet on, I guess.
Yeah, basically. And I'm fine with it either way. I think initially this was actually something that was interesting because we didn't know what Quar feet looked like up until we decided we started designing Gloam Hyyn.
I see.
So some of the drawings I've provided, they have like weird hooves.
Oh, okay.
I thought they would look better with that, but I don't know. The Hobbit feet are kind of funny.
Well, so
The internet is going to have a lot of fun with this conversation.
Cursed feet STL when?
I have actually used STLs of their shoes for death markers because I wanted to create little smoking boots, but it doesn't exactly work with the Crocs.
So the second design we made is, well, first off, Sunny made this one, and he looks very bushy, but then
I just put it on a different blending layer and
made it semi-transparent. Yeah.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I noted about them was how they're using camo, but it only covers a part of them. So I was like, wouldn't you use camo everywhere? And basically I said, all right, well, here's a thing called a ghillie suit, because that's something that people wear and they sort of attach stuff to it. And I thought that would be something similar to what they might do. Maybe not using a ghillie suit, but just their clothes itself.
Yeah.
Would this fit them?
It probably would, but again, it all comes down to tabletop.
Yeah.
When you have models that are a completely different color, it does detract from them. And there's already a few green armies. The Crusaders are the poster boys, so having green is kind of a no-go. But, it's like with Space Marines, why the Phobos armor, they have the convenience of having the cloak systems and the capes.
Yep.
And that's why you'll see Imperial fists with sniper units where it's like these guys are gonna, realistically stand out like I can't use that analogy, but you know what I mean.
Dog's bollocks.
Yeah, basically, I was gonna say.
That's the Australian slang that will not be too bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically that works.
Yeah.
But these guys, you can't really get away with that because, they don't cloak in, they don't have, like, chameleon, they're mammals, so it definitely could work, and the original design for the STL, the straw actually went over the shoulders, which might be something we revisit later, I'm not 100% certain, but for these guys, those guys right there are the basic infantrymen. Mm-hmm. They don't really need it. That's definitely something I want to bring up for future figures because I thought it did look really cool.
So here's a question for you, right? From what you've said, let's say I wanted to make some Quar minis and I wanted to do... Now, I don't know what it is with me and pronunciation. I always stuff it up, but it's Gloam.
Gloam.
Yes. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I keep saying
You added
Haven.
a bunch of stuff to it there.
Yeah. I don't know why. If I wanted to do Gloam Hyyn.
Yes.
Okay.
God.
I Toy Story blinked there.
Such an old man.
Yes, I am.
I can give you here you go. There's the actual there. Basically there's like a couple sentences in the previous lore book.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's cool about Gloam is that they've been mentioned all but barely, but they are technically something that have been around.
All right, cool. Long story short, let's say I wanted to make my own Quar guys and I wanted to use your faction right here. If I decided to say get some medical gauze and use that as a ghillie suit over these guys and attach my various basing materials to it so it looks like they're camouflaged, would that fit this faction?
It definitely would fit it. Mm-hmm. It would be the only challenge is to fit in the purple, but it's not.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, basically just use it sparingly, but use it to a point where it's effective. It's that happy medium. So yeah, it definitely would be fitting.
I would not use it sparingly. I would rule of cool it. They would all just be little jungle boys. But there is one last question I have. So from what you've said, they're barefoot people. They're very hippie sort of things. Would it be possible that there might be some sort of shaman person with a big old stick, barefoot, that might be traveling around with them?
One eye is bigger than the other.
Shaman, I would not say shaman because Quar do not have religion in any way. It's just not a concept that they believe in the spirit of their ancestors and Allwood as the planet because the planet itself is kind of special. There's a lot of mystical, but not. It's
like
not.
A
it's like
Pandora
how
concept.
Kind of. It's very Dark Crystal. If you've watched Dark Crystal.
They do very much look like the good versions of the Dark Crystal people here with these designs.
That, that might be not secretly, one of Mr. Quar's biggest influences. Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't say a shaman, but I mean, it would be cool to have a Quar with a big stick that hits people in the head.
Yeah, but I want specifically jungle guy wearing jungle stuff, but big hairy legs and bare feet with a big stick.
I mean, you probably could do that. I don't know if they grow hair on their legs, but...
See, I
stubble can exist.
Yeah,
on
you know
the
what?
feet.
I reckon some
have...
static grass and a razor.
Gosh.
You could pull it off.
You just love your
That'd be really difficult.
Project a little too much. You're gonna make everything just like him.
Oh my!
Oh, here I can actually give this. This is the Koftir officer. This is the STL. So I will. That is the final design for the officer.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, I've seen that when we were taking a look at some Quar online.
Yeah.
So that gives a little bit more perspective. I didn't draw him with his helmet because I wasn't sure if they were going to have similar helmets or if they would just have the typical Koftir and officer helmet, which they do. That's what that is.
And so should he be painted with the angry eye or just left as the usual worm look?
Most of the minis don't show the eyes unless they are completely bare. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's actually another thing. Josh does not like the worm comparisons. He's very adamant they are anteaters.
Ah, yes.
Anteaters, huh? I guess
Well, I mean, they don't really.
snout.
They do eat bugs. That is their primary diet. That's why they eat moth cakes. I think the ears were a very the ears are one of the most recent additions because they did not have ears before. So that is more to sell the anteater like properties.
I think it's nice and cute. I like a little wiggly ears. And you know, it is something that as I was researching about Quar, it's described as grimsicle.
Grimsicle.
A grimsicle.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, wow, what an interesting concept. And
It's a wonderful concept.
And I was just thinking to myself, that is perfectly sums up exactly what Quar is, because it's quite whimsical. It's got that childlike wonder to add to it, but then it's also a bit grimdark because of, war. And I thought that is such a happy medium. Like, in fact, if like parents wanted to get their kids into a starter wargaming thing, this would be very attractive to children.
Yeah, well, I think especially kids who are sort of making that transition, so maybe like 8 to 12-year-olds where they're figuring out that they might like wargaming still, but they want it to be cute for a while and then they'll move on to being cool. But,
edgy boys.
But for the moment they'll enjoy this. So, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only moth cakes and grump.
And Quar.
I thought you were going to say Quar, because Jesus Christ. The amount of times I had that spammed in my comments, and Quar never changes.
Quar never
had Josh.
changes! My
So
goodness.
Josh actually ended up texting me, wondering what the hell everybody was talking about, and I had to explain Fallout to him. But yeah, I would agree that the Grimsicle, I mean, that's the name of his company now, or I guess his studio.
Oh, that is
Well,
so...
he coined I think he coined the term. I'm gonna give him credit because I learned it from him. But
I think
overall,
perfect.
I think Quar is that kind of perfect balance because it is, in a lot of ways, in my eyes anyway, it's almost an anti-war allegory because you care for these guys so much. I mean, another thing to quote from him is every old war movie, nobody bats an eye when thousands of men die. But as soon as the dog or horse dies, everybody's up in arms.
Yeah.
Everybody gets attached. So making a game exclusively about these cutesy characters that are, they're at war forever. They don't know how to stop.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have this is something that I always try to say. A lot of people go against the royalist side and just view them as the all-out bad guys. Well, the Crusaders, though they are the rebels, they're still, in a lot of ways, they're not 100% the good guys. There are no true good guys. There are no true bad guys.
Yeah,
and I think that's what makes the series very special.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of good guys during war. There's a whole lot of people killing each other. But I think on that note, where you said that everybody's up in arms when they see the dog die or the horse die or something like that, and how this gets you to, I guess, reattach yourself because so many people are detached from the idea of war, and this helps you sort of understand how horrific it is. I think maybe that's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree.
Let's end it as we always do.
Well, but before that, we have to say, if you guys like the look of this Quar faction, and if you like the idea of the game Quar, please go over to Mish Mash's channel and see what he's done and check out some of his videos.
Oh yes, and what are we meant to do? Mish Mash, kit bash, and create some great minis.
Because you're gonna. Yeah.
And paint some fantastic miniatures. And you're gonna, I promise.
There we go. All right.
And as always, keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye.
See ya.
First of all, big thank you to Mish Mash.
And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Design vs. Lore Gloam Hyyn. And many of you have asked us to cover more topics and analysis outside of, Astartes and Warhammer. So here you go. We did it with Quar.
That's right. The hobby is more than just Space Marines.
And more than just Warhammer.
And sorry that our audio quality wasn't top notch throughout. Unfortunately, during the interview, our laptop wanted to,
Scream.
That's certainly one way of putting it. Also, it might have been that we had our headphones a bit too loud listening to Mish Mash, and I think he had us playing through the speakers, but we hope that it was still enjoyable for you.
It definitely was for us, so thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
Before you go, if you like this game, we've got links for it. In the description, we've got Mish Mash's affiliate link. And just like we're trying to give Mish Mash a bump, try and give us a bump by joining us as a member.
Get early access, and at higher levels, you get exclusive content and SDLs.
Hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.